Oh well. Well, I guess you guys got to hear me read about sex. She's winding herself up with her hands and voice both tightening. I gave her a gentle bump to try and lighten up the situation. You don't have to apologize. I said I liked you as well, after all. But with her composure beginning to falter, it becomes obvious there's no alternative. Turning to Lily, I gently embrace her tall frame. She offers no resistance at all, thankfully pulling back just from the edge of her emotions. Despite our reassuring embrace lasting only a matter of seconds, I notice Hanako wordlessly watching. Mommy? Daddy? What are you doing? Oh, Mommy and Daddy are just wrestling. Wrestling a lot. Oh, I love the way Mommy wrestles. Oh, Mommy is really good at wrestling. Oh. Maybe it's because she's blind, but Mommy has a really good way with her fingers. The clatter of utensils against plates is the only sound to be heard as we silently eat. Whereas before only two of us may have been unsure of ourselves, the entire situation has changed. After weeks of blissful friendship, wheeling away the days with shared meals and clatter with little meaning, the relationship of Lily and me, no, that of all of us, has irreversibly changed. I can't take this. Lily! She solemnly nods, gently laying her spoon onto the plate in front of her. Neither of us knows exactly how we regard each other, let alone how Hanako would view us. This might seem abrupt, but I confess to Hisao. Also, we banged. Oh, we banged hard. For a moment, Hanako looks almost confused. Precisely the reaction I thought she would have. She eventually nods, her spoon still in her mouth as she does. Did you accept? I did. Oh, I accepted a lot. We accepted hard. She gives a smile so large and so earnest, I find myself blushing. I think it's the brightest I've ever seen her expression look. Then I'm happy. I'm really, really happy. I'm sorry for not telling you about it before. Things have been... Hanako shakes her head from side to side, empathically apparently, forgetting in her rush that Lily couldn't possibly notice. She begins fiddling with her fingers, looking a little more nervous than she did before. To be honest, I began to think you might like each other a while ago. At first I didn't really know what to think about it, but I decided in the end if my friends were happy, then I'm happy. I was really glad to have another friend when we met Hisao, so you finding love through him is even better, right? A feeling of relief at her acceptance of our relationship falls over me like a wave. The same happens to Lily, judging by her expression. Thank you, Hanako. I really appreciate you being so understanding. Lily's voice still sounds slightly apologetic, or at least unsure. This doesn't escape Hanako, who appears lost in thought for a few moments before turning to me. Hisao, do you mind if Lily and I go outside for a bit? Feel free. Hanako? You should put your, Hanako gets up from her seat, taking Lily's hand, almost dragging her from the table in her excitement. Considering Lily's typically low and steady pace, Hanako's haste makes her footing awkward, and she almost loses her balance a couple of times. It's a pretty amusing sight, leaving me wordless as I watch them disappear out the door. It's only now I realize the rain stopped, being replaced by a sky seemingly all the more vivid and bright to make up for the morning's drab gray expanse. For Hanako, this must be a pretty big revelation. Lily and I are really the only people she associates with, almost as if we were parents in her own stead. Told you, Mom and Dad. I suppose that might well be the best way to describe the relationship we share. A father, mother, and daughter, all playing around our little make-believe family as if it could last forever. This also makes the whole I dated Hanako in another life really weird now that she's my daughter. Might be a strange dynamic, and one that certainly can't last for long, but maybe, just for this one small moment, it's okay. As I stand from the table and go to join Lily and Hanako in the fields outside, I nod to myself in affirmation. They're having a private conversation, dude. Can you, let them have a moment? This one small moment of happiness, no matter how brief, will last with me, with all of us, forever. Submerged deep in hot water, I let a drawn-out sigh escape my lips. The feeling of seemingly every muscle in my body relaxing is euphoric. I have no idea how long it's been since I had a genuinely hot bath, but now I can hardly be bothered trying to remember. Maybe I'm giving the simple fact that for once, I get to have a real bath more credit. Then it's due. The chance to just calm down, allow myself to unwind, and have some time to myself is a welcome one. Hanako, Lily, and I wander about outside, exploring the extent of the surprisingly large tract of land surrounding the house. Then we spent the majority of the afternoon resting, watching television, reading, and playing cards. It may not have been the most exciting finale to the trip, but such tranquil peacefulness is something to savor. Even after we return to the school tomorrow, I think I'll remember this little house in Hokkaido for a long time. It's a pity we only have a couple of more hours to spend here before going to the train back. All I can do is yawn contentedly while I watch the steam slowly rising from the clear water's placid surface, my eyes eventually locking onto the ceiling. Our exams are imminent. I've barely studied for them at all. On top of that, I don't even know what to do after graduation. Passing exams is all well and good, but to what end? And now of all times, I'm getting into a good relationship. What the hell am I doing? You're taking a bath. I guess I shouldn't think like that. What's done is done, and maybe this could be viewed as just another aspect of my new life I'm working on. We turned off content. I enjoy being with Lily, and there's more to life than school and a career after all. As I busily attempt to rationalize all that's happened, I hear a series of raps on the door. I pick myself up and sit upright, trying to find out the source. 3, no more, no less. Light, yet sure of their tapping, and timed regularly enough to tune the metronome. I'd be extremely surprised if it wasn't Lily. May I come in? Yeah. I'm still in the bath. I'll be out in a second. I know. Woo! The voice coming from the other side of the door freezes me. After a second's thought, I rest on the side of the bath and let my arms dangle over the side. Despite my best to play it off, I can't help letting my mind wander. Sure, come in. With that, she slides open the door, slowly walking into the room and closing it behind her. She looks oddly calm, countering my racing heart. Hey, Lily. Do you mind if I take a bath with you? Ooh, yeah. Don't mind, go ahead. With a little nod, she begins to lift her sweater off her shoulders, baring her chest little by little. I could do that for you if you like. Refused. Why? Her face shows she's not overly comfortable with letting me attend to her. I can't say I blame her. She continues undressing, her shirt and skirt falling to the floor, leaving her in her white lace bra and panties. Eventually, she stands bare in the center of the room. Man, twice? 2 days twice? How nice. Oh, and it ends on a, After a chaotic dash to the station and finding our seats in the otherwise deserted carriage, we promptly crashed. Looking at a time close to midnight, it's little surprise that few take this particular train. Hanako is fast asleep on Lily's shoulder, and I can only barely muster the energy to stay awake. The excitement we had a while ago probably didn't help. I'd probably be pretty depressed about going back to school if my brain was actually working. As it is, though, the sight of the nighttime series scrolling by is surprisingly beautiful. My loud yawn is nearly wholly drowned out by the clacking of the train tracks and the old carriages rattling. So tired. Whose fault is that, Hisao? Oh, you. She really does toe the line between insulting and amusing sometimes, though I manage to wring out a weary smile. I look back out the window, my reflection just visible on the clear plain. Truth be told, she's perfectly correct. If it weren't for that little interlude a few hours ago, both of us would have a lot of energy. On top of that, we both had to take another bath, nearly making us late for the train's departure. It was mine. Still getting into the bath with the guy is a dangerous thing to do. Evidently. Sorry, I guess I kind of took advantage of the situation back there. Oh, she knew exactly what she was doing, dude. I didn't exactly hate it. As she trails off, I look back to her. My eyes narrow as I see her slightly reddened cheeks and small grin, her mind obviously elsewhere. Say it. I knew the possibility of it happening was there. I knew it. You're just as dirty-minded as I am. She quickly coughs into her free hand, making her disapproval crystal clear. That's a rather crude way of putting it. Oh, and you would suggest? I merely have a healthy adolescent sex drive. Dirty-minded. Almost seeming to sense the moment, Hanako mumbles quietly as she furrows her brow in Lily's lap. Lily's look of disapproval melts away as she gently smiles and strokes her hand in Hanako's long dark hair. All I can do is watch Watch and smile. If someone were to ask me when I fell in love with her, I wouldn't be able to answer. Best I'd able to come up with is it just happened at some point, but I didn't realize it. If someone were to ask me why I love her, though, then I can answer much more easily. You really love Hanako, don't you? She gets a deep nod, smiling warmly. It's a pity we have to return to school. Boop. She seems to relax so much while we are away. Let's talk about Hanako! I wouldn't worry about Hanako. She's been gaining confidence thanks to you, at least for as long as I've known you two. She gives a self-depreciating sigh. I think I merely provided her with a company and support. Since she came to know you, she's opened up much more, even to me. I get the feeling she's understanding her influence on Hanako, especially given that before the two came to know each other, Hanako had no friends to speak of. The friends I had in my previous school fulfilled what I expected of them. For the most part, simply being there for idle chatter, but in Hanako and Lily, there really feels to be more to their relationship. You get more out of Hanako and Lily route than in Hanako route. Part of me envies it, but another can't ignore the fact that the school year eventually ends. After graduation, I'll have no idea what Hanako will do. This trip has shown me just how much we've all come to depend on one another. Indeed, we're all going to have to make decisions. Maybe that's the reason why, despite our return to school, also heralding a return to the normalcy of everyday life, I can't help but feeling a little restless. On the bright side, it won't take long for the summer holidays to arrive after our exams are finished. We can come back here during the summer holidays if you want. For a moment, she thinks on the notion, her face becoming somewhat distant. I can only guess she's reflecting on all that's happened here. That'd be good. I nod approvingly, smiling at her. Summer, together with Lily, this idea seems like the perfect way to spend our holiday. Chapter end. Yeah, future. Future arc. I've seen Danganronpa, but this is not gonna be good. Before we continue the future arc, though, we're gonna take a quick commercial break as I take care of some bathroom stuff. So good. After the excitement of our trip to Hokkaido, it seems strange to be right back to our usual daily routine so soon. Indeed, it feels like a normal day, the same as any other. Well, that's what I like to think anyways. To tell the truth, the atmosphere of the entire class, no, the entire school has changed. While an undercurrent of subdued trepidation has previously pervaded the class, now that exams are in sight, it's boiled over into frantic studying, rarely seen otherwise. One day until exams start, it's horrific, really, that instead of studying, we went and wasted our trip up north. We were such model students, too. Glancing around the class, even the bubbly, ever-energetic Misha seems oddly deflated. She sits at her desk, nervously chewing a pen while Muto lectures from the front of the class. Wait. On close inspection, I do believe she's eating it. Tearing my eyes from the sorry spectacle, I turn my attention elsewhere. Are you sure? Are you sure we're not allowing mentally disabled people into school? Hanako sits frantically scribbling in her notebook, her face mere inches away from the page, seemingly trying to record every word that leaves Muto's mouth. Shizune's, well, Shizune, cool as a cucumber. She sits, how old are we to say cool as a cucumber? She sits diligently taking notes with her attention wholly focused on the front of the class. Truth be told, it's what I should be doing as well, if not for the fact that I feel like I have a pretty good handle on what's being covered already. I wonder what Lily's doing. While she does have a good head on her, she has plenty on her plate, unlike me. Her class representative duties, taking care of Hanako, her other social contacts, her extra English studies, that girl really does take on a lot. The lunchtime bell brings a sigh of relief from the entire class, Mutuo being no exception. I get the feeling he much prefers the more laid-back atmosphere of his normal classes to the frantic pace of exam prep we are subjected to right now. Hee-chan. Help me. I lower my eyelids to half-mast, making clear my intention of doing quite the opposite. Help me, help me, help me. Not going well? Shi-chan's gonna be fine, but I think I might die. Am I gonna die? Will you let me die from all this work? How maudlin. Given that she's neither the brightest student in the class nor the most diligent, it isn't a great surprise she's finding it hard to cope with the workload. Sorry, Misha. I got my own work to do. I thought you and Shizune would be studying together over the long weekend anyways. Studying is too boring to waste a holiday on. Shopping together was much more fun, wasn't it? It's only now I realize Shizune has been looking over to us, and that Misha's arm has been moving likely all this time. I must have really zoned out to have not noticed. What is it with girls and shopping anyways? Even Lily and Hanako have dragged me out a couple of times. But you went anyways? It's so rare to see a guy like that likes to go shopping. Well, my role would have probably been best described as a pack mule. I can't say I share your enthusiasm about the experience. Back to the exams. You studied after you got back with days off, didn't you, Shizune? Of course, Hichan is only sensible to study in the days before. Ugh. Misha makes a sound vaguely similar to a dying cow as she realizes her folly and unceremoniously flops onto her desk, betrayed even by her best friend. Judging from Shizune's quite frustrated look at Misha, she probably told her to study as she did. Don't worry, you can still gain some grades if you start studying now. Maybe. Misha does not seem overly amused. It seems the bubbly balloon of everlasting cheerfulness has cruelly been plopped. Shizune's signing goes unnoticed by the moping Misha, earning her a quick poke in the shoulder. It takes barely a moment for Misha to get back into form. Ah, so what did you do over the weekend, Hichan? Took a trip up north? Lost my virginity? You know, the usual. I see both of them narrowing their eyes at me, their minds surely in the gutter. The fact that their suspicions are founded makes the situation all the more awkward. We just studied and went sightseeing. There's nothing more to it, except for when I banged Lily's brains out. After such a fragrant lie, I realize it may not have been the best step, considering Shizune's connections and her total lack of restraint when it comes to questioning someone she suspects of telling untruths. I really have no idea how she's going to take it, but she'll find out eventually anyways. It isn't as if it's really her business whom I date in any case. And yes, Lily and I are going out now. While Misha receives the news with an enthusiastic smile, Shizune gives a look of mild surprise, somewhat masked by her cool demeanor. Whoever you date is your business. I hope you two go well together. Misha gives a look that says this is the most quarter I could possibly receive in the matter. It's all I wanted, really. After she says this, though, Shizune begins to sign something else and stops herself and shakes her head at Misha, preventing her from translating. Normally, I think this is strange enough, but the awkwardly casual wave Shizune gives before walking off with Misha in tow adds to my confusion. Shizune is hardly the kind of person to pull a punch or communicate without forethought. I shrug my shoulders at the duo's odd behavior and look forward to Hanako's desk, but see her chair is empty. She was definitely here before, so I guess she didn't feel like waiting. I'll go grab some food then. Walking down the hallway to the unused room that's become a second home to the three students in particular, I mournfully look down at the plastic wrapped salad roll and juice box in my hand. The cafeteria foods really is unappealing. Maybe I'll consider this my penance for my recent indiscretions. Opening the door, I notice one less quiet figure than I expected. It's strange. Despite having known Lily for months, I can't help thinking back to the very first time I opened this door and saw her silently sitting on the sunlight. Just as she did then, she slowly opens her eyes, unmoving as they are, and calmly addresses me. Morning, Hisao. It's afternoon, I think. Has Hanako been around? She skittered out of class without me even noticing. Lily cradles her cheek thoughtfully as I take a seat, my bag taking its place against the closest leg of the table and my unsatisfying meal neatly set out in front of me. She did appear for a time. She said she had to study for upcoming exams and left for the library. We find ourselves not entirely believing her words. Well, at least her intentions are in the right place. She is sweet, but she needn't go this far to let us have our space. I might talk to her about it sometime. Probably for the best. For a while, we quietly eat our meals. Lily elegantly nibbling on her sandwiches and sipping her tea as I eat what tastes like a garden sandwich in dry dough. The atmosphere feels slightly strained, neither of us knowing quite what to say to each other now that our small talk has dried up. Eventually, we finish our food, with no conversation forthcoming for quite some time. Eventually, though, Lily's soft voice breaks the silence. A lot happened back there, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Again, silence. With both our minds on the same topic, though, I think I have my feelings on that sorted out. I know everything happened in kind of a hurry, but I don't regret anything about what happened to Hokkaido. Not one thing. Hisao? Slightly tense, I take her hand in mine, half to feel her, half to settle my own nerves. I stand by my words back there, Lily. I love you, and I won't leave you. I only wish for you to think the same. She silently reflects for a long time, which feels like an eternity. Her reverie comes to an end as she takes one hand from mine, placing it over them as she leans her body forward and stands out of her chair. After a moment's hesitation, her face slightly pensive, her lips meet mine for a brief moment. My mind feels as if it's briefly stopped at that moment, barely registering Lily sitting back in a chair and smiling back at me, with ever so slightly reddened cheeks. Hearing that makes me happy, Hisao. I would be glad to stay with you. Maybe it would be good to slow things down a bit compared to before. We still have school after all, and our exams. She gives a mischievous giggle, which proves to be contagious. That might be a good idea indeed. Do you think we'll fare well in our exams? It's only one day until they arrive, as you say. I probably should have studied more, but I think I've got good enough head to manage. That said, I had to bat off Misha and Shizune. Is your class as worried about the exams as mine? She lets out an exasperated sigh, all but confirming it. I'm thankful for the atmosphere becoming a bit lighter. I think so. I've already been asked for help by 2 of my classmates, and there'll no doubt be more. Think that was your first training of being a teacher, maybe. That's probably a good way to think of it. On that note, how are you faring with your English studies? I remember it was far from your strongest subject, and the few sentences you memorized to speak to my mother aren't likely to help. You got me. If you don't mind, would you be able to possibly help in that regard? It'll be my pleasure to help you, Hisao, but in exchange... She lowers her eyebrows at me, her coquettish nature tentatively coming to the fore. No problem at all. You'd probably be better off with some help in your studies, though. She beams a smile at me. Oh, of course. We can help her out with something else, if you know what I mean. You scratch my back. Something yours. She beams a smile at me, one of girlish victory that makes me blush. I get the feeling she's aware of how to use her face to twist my judgment, so I should probably be more on guard. Here and now, though, a study group seems like an expedient way for both of us to shore up our more lacking skills. The school bell rings out, reminding us that time isn't going to stand still. Lunchtime's over already. It'll sure be easy to lose track of time here. This room's so far from the other clubs and activities, not much sound can reach us. That's probably most of the reason why. A place far from the others, alone with just one person whom she loves. As Lily stands and collects her bag and cane, my thoughts are cast back to the time we spent in Hokkaido. Before I go, Akira and I are having a homecoming party in my room tomorrow. Will you be able to come? My schedule is free, so I should be able to make enough room in my study time to make it. Good to hear, Sal. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're back from Scotland. Once exams are over, we should have more time to ourselves. Holidays start soon after that, too. We can start the holidays with Tanabata, then. Just as we promised at the school festival. Tanabata, is that hot pot? Oh no, Tanabata is the festival. She brings her hand on her cheeks and laughs more nervously, recalling the event as I silently thank myself for managing to remember. It seems odd to see her react in such a way, though it's not like I never saw her embarrassed before. I better be going. Farewell, Hisao. Bye. Whether it's out of habit or just a stubborn desire for one small fragment of normality, I hold my hand up in farewell just as I always do. At least, I am consciously aware that I'm doing it now. I think I'm beginning to see a bigger picture than I ever have before, not only with Lily, but also my life ahead. The chains of my past are finally breaking. Or are they? Walking up now. The now slightly more familiar corridor of the girls' dormitories, I can hear the faint sound of laughter coming from up ahead. It doesn't take long to identify the source as Lily's room, though the deep timbre of the female voice unmistakably belongs not to her, but to her sister. I rap my knuckles on the door with the usual 3 light taps, my hand barely retreating as the door swings open. Hey, Hisao. Hey, Lily, Hanako. Ah, I love this scene. Hanako looks up tentatively, her hands buried in her oversized pink nightgown. From her side, Lily turns sideways towards the direction of my voice and smiles. It would be a flagrant lie to say I dislike the sight of her in those pajamas. I catch Akira giving me a sidelong look with a knowing grin, to which I reply with a sharp glare. She takes a hint, shrugs, and walks back to the low table to the center of the room. As I go to join her, Lily gives me a nod of greeting and starts pouring me a cup of tea. It's nice to see you again, Hanako. You've been getting around recently. Lily wears a look of concentration as the light brown liquid, carefully measured by her finger as always, flows from the teapot into the cup. It seems Hanako is taking up helping one of the people in your class with the newspaper club. Naomi, I think? Hanako gives an affirmative nod. Even after spending almost 2 months in a class, I still have trouble remembering the names of those students I rarely talk with. It takes me a few mental contortions to connect the name with the face, but I eventually remember the girl that sits behind Hanako at the back of the class. Naomi Inoue, a fairly average-looking girl except for her bleached blonde hair. Okay. Given her upbeat and straightforward personality, Naomi may have seen an opening to poach Hanako for her club when she inquired about joining one. Either way, it's nice to see Hanako broadening her horizons. When I first met her, the idea of her joining a club with anyone but Lily would have seemed utterly laughable. That explains how busy you've been. Enjoying it? It's really interesting. As always, Hanako's far from being talkative. Some things never change, and it seems that Hanako's personality is one of them. She'll likely always be one to shy away from being overly social. Warned by the sound of crockery against the table as Lily gently places my drink in front of me, I thank her and take a long sip. Hanako and Lily are attending to their own, and Akira is quaffing a mug of strong-smelling black coffee. You're a lucky bastard, Hisao. Huh? I can't help grimacing at her teasing smile, still visible around the edges of the mug, pressed to her lips. Seeing my sister in her pajamas, there's a lot of men out there who'd like to be where you are. I've seen a lot more of her than that. Akira. Hey, I'm just teasing. She leans over to me as much as she can, whispering with a sly grin written on her face. And Hanako too, you perv. Been there, done that. It was her idea. We both look over to her, her face turned to the ground, her hands fidgeting in the lap of her nightgown. If it's Hisao, I don't mind. Oh, I know, we've had a very storied past there, Hanako. This could be bad. I know Hanako's altogether too innocent to bother reading too much into such a thing, but the expression Akira directs at me is positively stormy. Akira, please. It seems Lily can sense Akira's sudden change in aura just as well as I, even without seeing it for herself. Akira slowly looks away from me like an attack dog, Leashed by its owner in the nick of time. I breathe a sigh of relief. I can't think of a more appropriate time to try and change topics than around now. If you don't mind me asking, Akira, what do you do for a living? I've never seen you out of that suit. Thinking about what to do with yourself after school's over, eh? I'm a lawyer. For the most part, I work in the legal department of the Japanese branch of my family's company. The most boring possible answer, I suppose. Law is a pretty dry topic to most people. Kinda. Oh, hey, you're not supposed to agree. Lily gives an amused giggle, while holding her teacup and saucer, Hanako quickly joining her. This friendly atmosphere between everyone is something I missed while Lily and Akira were on their trip. While the dealings I had with Hanako didn't help, I think just not having Lily around has changed the mood. It's nice to be back. I missed you, Hisao, and you too, Hanako. Same goes for the both of us. I'm guessing your classmates were very happy to see you back. In a manner of speaking, yes. Akira's amused snort shows she's well aware of Lily's attitude towards such figures of speech. I imagine she'd have... Oh, happy to see you. I imagine she had to be, given how long they've been together. Did you have fun in Scotland? For a moment I wonder why she's asking. It's been quite a while since they came back, but then I remember everything that happened. We simply have not had time to look back, what with the exams and our Hokkaido trip. Lily's face goes distant for a while, and the fact that Akira's first reaction is to look over to her sister doesn't escape me. Nonetheless, she quickly collects herself. It was nice. I haven't met our family in such a long time, so it was a wonderful reunion. I guess that's right. Our house being beachside was the best part, though. With her dismissive tone, I get the feeling Akira doesn't like their family as much as Lily does. You only like that because you finally had time to play around. Just because I'm the better swimmer. I don't take after the athletic side of the family, that's all. Well, you can take heart in the fact that you've got the height genes at least. And the boob genes. Not really the right kind of thing to say around others. Though Lily pretends to scold Akira, she does so with an unmistakable, slightly cheeky grin on her face. I doubt Akira's really minds that, judging from her nonchalant expression. Well, I don't either. Hanako looking down and blushing furiously beside me. The sisters' antics aside, their parents really do lead a bourgeoisie lifestyle. It seems utterly divorced from the life that Lily and Akira and I lived until now. I suppose practicality must have made the decision for them. To have come from such a wealthy and well-connected lineage only adds to the almost noble air Lily seems to have, though. It's a small wonder none of it seems to have rubbed off on Akira. They really are as little alike as siblings could be. Their only similarity seems to be their shared confidence, which can be both endearing and a headache at times. Most of the night continues much the same, with Hanako eventually leaving the Satuo sisters and to me to ourselves as she heads back to her dorm room for a rest. For a while, only barely audible sound from Lily's teacup and saucer can occasionally be heard as she slowly drinks. The silence is strained as Lily and I wait for the elephant in the room to be addressed. So, Lily dutifully puts her cup down, giving her sister undivided attention. With Lily and me on one side of the low table and Akira on the other, this almost feels like a judge passing down a verdict. I hear you two are going out now. I glance sideways to Lily to confirm her as the source of Akira's knowledge. She gives a gentle nod to Akira, which I mirror in affirmation. Deciding that this is a proper time and place to do so, and Akira being the closest figure to parent Lily's head for much of her life, I bow deeply with my hands on the floor before me and my head very nearly the same. I'll take good care of your sister, Akira, I promise. See, he's a lovely young gentleman. She must have heard my voice coming from a lower position than usual. I slowly bring myself back up, my eyes tentatively looking to Akira from under my brow. To tell the truth, I very much doubt my suited judge would raise any objections. She's very definitely the type to make her disapproval with others well known. Something that lends her a measure of respect in my eyes. The old-fashioned kind, huh? Well, he's the kind of person I guess you'd go for. I don't have any problem with it, and I wish you two the best. Even if I didn't like it, I really couldn't do anything anyways. I offer a nod of appreciation to her as Lily gives a small sigh of relief. Likely more out of duty than of any actual belief Akira might have had any problems with us being together. I do wonder, though. How's the rest of the family taking it, particularly the part residing at Yamaku? Have you told her? Smiles turn to grimaces as Akira grins downright evilly. Those closest know how to twist the knife best, after all. Putting up with it would be the best term for the situation, don't you agree, Hisao? Yeah, that sounds about right. At least she's being reasonable about it. Good to hear. That girl can be a handful at the best of times. We sent a few messages back and forth during and just after the trip, and she was already busting my chops for seeing my boyfriend when we came back. After leaving Hideaki for so long, she really does care for the little guy. I cast my mind back to Shizune's odd reaction after telling her our relationship, but deciding not to bring it up. It's no doubt simply born of their mutual antipathy, and Akira's comments only back that up. Well then, that's settled. Gotta go to work early tomorrow. She raises from the table with a grunt, her hand on her knee to push herself up. I just noticed Akira's eyes lingering on Lily for a couple of seconds before turning away as she begins to take her leave. After she walks out the door, she stops and looks up thoughtfully before turning to us one last time. Oh yeah, almost forgot to tell you. Use protection every time. Whoops! I gag violently on the tea in my mouth. Contrary to my own, Lily's composure holds perfectly as she seems entirely unfazed. I'm kind of impressed. We are, don't worry. Atta girl, see ya. With that, she turns and strides away, a hand held high as she disappears into a darkened alley, closing the door behind her. I do seem to remember no protection being mentioned the first time, bruh. The most reaction I can muster is flopping forward onto the table, completely drained of energy and truly exhausted by her. Lily's ability to hold her own against that suited devil is something I admire. She really is adamant, really is incredibly blunt. I don't think I'll ever be able to keep up with your sister's energy. As I feel Lily's soft hand come to rest on my own, I roll my head to the side to see her gently smiling. For a long time, we simply sit beside each other silently. Given her unquestionably unusual height, she is pretty much exactly as tall as I am. Probably a couple centimeters higher, if anything. Like this, she appears even taller. The feeling of her pale, soft hand against mine is a pleasant one. As if the sight of the thin, silken pajamas she wears, she's showing her curves and collarbone. You do get on well. You do get on well, though, even if you do say that. I guess. You know, you two are a lot more alike than I first thought when I met you. That's a good thing. I quickly stopped you from going after her, isn't it? Huh? Though she jokes about it, my assessment of my inability to keep up with Akira, either physically or mentally, are quite in earnest. Lily's slow-paced and ladylike, almost motherly nature is perhaps the single thing that helped me the most in my first few weeks at Yamaku. Come to think of it. Wait, since when were you using protection? Hey! As I give a curious look to my side, Lily's cheeks puff out as she huffs at me. Unlike you, I remember the packet is in the cupboard next to the sink. So, I'm not the only one of us that takes a pill. In hindsight, I feel rather thoughtless of not remembering it all and leaving it to Lily. Looking over to the cupboard she mentions, I notice again the knee-high piles of books around us that are here the other times I visited. For the most part, they're lined up against the wall to give a little more room around the table. Why don't you get a bookshelf for your books? It's odd to see books just piled around, especially given that your room looks so neat and orderly otherwise. They're easier to find this way. I know exactly which pile each book is in. Would you still know that after putting each set in a different shelf? That may be, but she's not immune to bouts of laziness after all. You may have so many of them, it's kind of a shame we can't share our book sets despite both of us reading so much. She gives a short giggle. Come to think of it, why do you order your books through Yuko? I imagine there'd be plenty of sites you can order books in Braille from, especially in English Braille. There's a lot of text-to-speech programs too. She turns her head slightly away from me, which strikes me as somewhat surprising. I'm just not that good with computers. I'm alright with typewriters and braillers. That's about it. Her tone almost makes me chuckle. She's a prideful person, so admitting something like that must be difficult. So Lily's a low-tech kind of person. I guess the Lily route just wasn't meant to be, guys. Like, it's just... I'm out. I wouldn't worry about it. A lot of people aren't really that good with them, so it's not that unusual. That's unusual. Now she's even more depressed. I feel like I'm twisting a knife rather than healing her wounds. With a bit of squirming, I shuffle my way closer to her, tentatively putting one hand around her waist to hug her. I'm still not really used to this kind of physical affection, but Lily seems to like it. Yeah! Lily smiles as she turns to face me, a kiss being rewarded for her, for giving in to her. She draws me in, brushing my upper lip with hers before pressing against both. This way, every one of my senses is filled with her. The barely perceptible scent of her hair, her taste as her tongue fleetingly touches mine, the tenderness of her lips, the image of her filling my mind, the total silence apart from her faint breath. We may have kissed before, but even if this is one more kiss of simple affection than anything, it's still a new and pleasant sensation. Judging from her vivid blush as she pulls back, it's obvious she feels the same as I do. Even if we're entirely alone, it still feels a little embarrassing to open up to each other this much. If we take everything day by day, I think that would be best for us. Small steps, right? Yeah, small steps. We have plenty of time to be together even after school year is over. As long as we move together, I think everything will work out okay. Neither of us is going anywhere anytime soon, after all. For now, I'm just thankful for this small moment in time we can spend together. Lily's route is like the sweetest route. There's like no drama. Oops. It's like such a simple, sweet route. I stand unmoving in front of the door to the nurse's office for what feels like at least a dozen minutes or so. It's not like I never entered a small beige room before, nor is it because of any feelings of childlike anxiety over the visit. Maybe it's because the nurse's office is akin to a confessional, an admission that my body is flawed. The knowledge that such a fact is kept entirely confidential between the nurse and me hardly lessens the feeling. Remembering that the bell to signal the end of lunch will begin soon, I give a sigh and open the door. The burden will stay with me just this while longer. Well now, if it isn't Nakai, good to see you. Or bad, I guess, considering that I'm a nurse. He gives a small sigh, laugh, amused at his little joke. I find his humor lacking and somewhat off, but the fact that he can make light of such a situation is perhaps comforting, or at least distracting. His brief episode of entertainment is over. He clasps his hands together and gets down to business. I take a seat as he gestures me to do so. I wish the classrooms had seats this comfortable. I can feel my mind wandering as my eyes quickly scan the room, distracted by all the small changes since I last came. Alrighty, what brings you here? Mostly. I see. His smile drops as I trail off. I feel slightly guilty about it. It's these moments where I can't rationally call myself normal that make me so reluctant to see the nurse. They're an admission that I'm different from everyone else. While I was on a trip before the long weekend, I had a few problems with my heart. He hums very seriously and nods as he does so, urging me to go on. I was walking a fairly long distance. I think the right term with it is a heart flutter. I quickly went weak at the knees and felt almost like I was having a small heart attack, but it passed in about half a minute. Even afterwards, though, I felt pretty fatigued and nauseous. Not good at all. How many days ago was it exactly? Did you do anything unusual aside from exerting yourself before the episode? Were you taking your medication properly? The nurse switches from awkward jokester to serious health professional mode, rattling off questions, making notes, and calling up stuff on his computer. I tell him about my forgetting to take my pills that morning and the preceding events. It was a stupid thing to do, but I can't change anything about it now except answer honestly and bite the bullet. His seriousness evolves into a frown, and the talk evolves to an instant checkup. I finish buttoning up my shirt and get mentioned to take a seat in front of the nurse. Is this the first heart problem you've had since coming to Yamaku? I've had short pains in my chest before, just a couple of times, but they were more discomfort than anything like this. He leans back in his chair, briefly resembling a white-coated Poirot, as he mulls over the mysterious case of the heart flutter. Moving his lips from side to side to show he's thinking, his non-existent mustache wiggling, he eventually comes to a conclusion. You survived. That's always on the plus side. I blink at this once, then notice the nurse wearing his gotcha face. It's actually somewhat reassuring. I don't think he would crack jokes. Yeah, if things were really serious, so I keep silent and take my lumps. I'll have a talk with your doctor, but right now I suspect it's simply due to physical exertion. Have you been keeping up with regular light exercise like I directed you to? No, if I did, I'd be on the Emmy route. I make sure to walk a reasonable amount every day. It's usually enough to work up a bit of a sweat, but then again, I'm not really as fit as I used to be. That should be enough then. The main thing to keep in mind is to do regular low-stress exercise, not short bursts of sprinting and such. I understand. Since leaving the hospital, I've been a lot more focused on my studies, particularly to take my mind off of not being able to do more physical things. It's good to hear you're coping well. Sudden lifestyle changes can be hard at the best of times, so I'm pleased to hear that you sound like you have everything in order. Almost everything, that is. Nevertheless, I want to keep a close eye on you for a while. Just for observation's sake, just to make sure things aren't going downhill, you understand? Observation is one of the words I come to hate most during the hospital stay. Should I come in more often? He checks the calendar next to his computer, which seems to inflict on him a nasty case of furrowed brow. The summer holidays are a bit of a pain considering the timing. I'll check with your doctor to try and get a better handle on this situation and see how he wants to proceed. I think you should take things slowly and carefully for now. What you're describing doesn't immediately sound like a recurring event, but it wouldn't hurt to slow down a bit for a while just to make sure. What should I do for today? He looks over his shoulder at the clock hanging over the door. I never noticed it if I hadn't followed its gaze. It's nearly time for school to be over, so you may as well just leave early. He gives me a sly wink, making sure I understand he's doing me a favor. Well, nurse's orders, thanks. That's what I'm here for after all. I know you might not want to hear this, but you can't ignore your condition. Don't hesitate to see me if you have any further problems, or if you have anything you want to ask. Bye! He spins around and gets back to typing on the computer. I suppose I'll just read before waiting for Lily by the gate, considering I don't have much else to do. Even as I leave, his words echo in my mind. My condition isn't something as limiting as many of the others here at Yamaku. I don't want to burden Lily with thinking about it. If I just live my life normally and avoid any short, sharp shocks, I should be okay. I won't let my condition rule me. Lily comes into view soon after the bells heralding the end of the school day ring out. She says farewell to a number of her classmates headed in the other direction before beginning her weekly trip to a convenience store. Afternoon, Lily. The immediate warm smile and relaxed demeanor she assumes upon noticing my presence are unexpectedly welcome. Hello, Hisao. Good afternoon to you too. She hesitates for a second, but eventually deigns to tilt her face forward and close her eyes. My lips meet hers with a measure of slight trepidation before we move off hand in hand. The fact that we're so close in height is somewhat useful at times, there being no need for either of us to turn our head upwards nor downwards in order to meet the others. Doesn't take much time to leave the noise of the other students far behind us, the tapping of Lily's cane in her free hand the only sound to be heard. Silence, blissful silence is all that greets us while we slowly walk to the setting sun's light. I think I'm coming to really like this town. The huge, green, hilly expanse, the trees everywhere, the somewhat rustic little buildings. So you've come to appreciate the tranquility of it all? I think so. I come from a metropolitan area near Tokyo, so the quiet of this town really alienated me when I first arrived. After a while, it became really nice. I think I prefer it to the hustle and bustle of my home city now. While I preferred the quiet of such a rural town even when I first arrived, I suppose I had the advantage of growing up in a quiet area before I came. Hanako said the surroundings were very pretty too. Lily may say such a thing quite easily, but every time she mentions how others describe sights around her as pretty or beautiful, I feel a little put off. I notice her expression becoming one of anticipation from her for some question or another. She always had a good sense of when somebody's not saying something that's on their mind, so I may as well speak up. I was wondering, how do I put this? Do you ever regret that you can't see things that things look like for yourself? It's just something I've been thinking about. Do you ever regret that you can't hear people whispering on the other side of a room? I can only speak for myself, but the fact that I can't see is the only way I've experienced life. Just as I cannot do something you can't do something that I'm capable of. The fact that the world is made for those who are sighted can be a pain sometimes, but there are many, many people who suffer much more than I because of the way the world is. That does make sense, but still, it just feels kinda bad to describe something that you can't experience to you. She tilts her head quizzically, as if I'd said something that makes very little sense at all. But I can experience it. You said yourself that you like this area because of the way the surroundings are. I like this area for the very same reasons. Thanks to the fact that this is a small rustic town surrounded by trees, it gives some peace and quiet away from the din at school and the bustle, not to mention the smells of the city. I suppose it would also be much like the home she shared with Akira as well. Her outlook on it seems pretty sensible, and I'm not surprised she's got a much better handle on her particular condition than I do. Just like how her coming from a location somewhat similar to Yamaku's surroundings let her become more acclimated in a shorter time, being born blind affected her stance by her own admission. I should stop being so annoyed with myself over it, but I can't shake the feeling that I've depended on Lily far too much given the circumstances most have had to deal with in Yamaku. That makes a lot of sense. You're pretty good at explaining, as always. Come to think of it, where is Hanako anyways? She was with us for lunch. It seems she's busy studying. The exams are far from over, and she said she wants to do better this year than last. While I admire her work ethic, she really has been trying to give us a lot more room alone recently. She's that type of person, I think. The kind that puts others' need above her own at every chance. She's a sweet girl, even though so much has hurt her in the past. I don't know, I feel like it's only now when she's less close to me than ever that she's truly finding herself. It was thanks to you that she began to become more confident, after all, not me. I take my hand away from hers and gently place it on her head. Head pats! The important thing is that you were there for her. I can't even imagine what she'd be like without having found someone like you. That much became obvious when you were in Scotland. We're all still friends, so you've just got to have faith in her. I think she'll become a good person, and that much is thanks to you being there for her when she most needed it, just as you were there for me. It makes me feel a bit childish when you sound so wise. I try. Are you doing anything this weekend by chance? Nothing, why? How about a date on Sunday? Be something to do besides exam prep. Countering my rapidly beating heart, she simply smiles and nods. That would be lovely. Where would you like to go? Come on, you asked her on a date but you don't have a place in mind? Hisao, get it together. You can't do that, Hisao, that's cheating. A gentleman should never ask a lady where to have a date. Yeah, you asked a date. If you propose a date, you propose where you're going. Come on. Ah. Her smile quickly comes back, assuring me she's far from serious. Don't worry about it. I'll think about where to go. I'll leave it to you then. I promise to decide on the next date, though. With our plans for the weekends made, the rest of the walk down the hill continues in silence. The prospect of that lasting for any length of time, however, is shattered as I catch sight of a familiar figure waiting for us, her hand held high. Yo! Thank you, come again. The change in temperature as I step outside from the convenience store sends a chill up my spine. It feels like summer is starting to wind down. Looking to my side, the same feeling seems to affect Lily as well. Though unlike me, she doesn't manage to hide the fact. Something I didn't realize at first was how physically delicate she is, even compared to the likes of Hanako. If I had to describe her, I had to say she reminds me of a China doll. Akira walks up behind her and gives a couple of hard pats on her shoulder, much to Lily's consternation. For a moment, she looks as envious of my status as an only child as I am of her close relationship. They talk between themselves for a few moments as I sort out my bags, their voices too low for me to catch, but eventually they break off and we begin to walk back to school. Ah, it feels so good to be out of that damned office. You kids don't know how good you have it here. Kids. You too. Kids grow up so fast nowadays. You're not old enough to say that. I don't know. Being around Hideaki makes me feel damn old. He's so, precocious. He reminds me of you when you were younger. He's a nice boy. It'd be a shame if Shizune comes to have too much of an influence on him. Akira gives an amused snort at her sister's antipathy. She really doesn't seem to regard it as anything to have make a serious fuss about, treating it more like a childhood spat. She looks over to me, apparently only just remembering that I'm here, giving a small grin as she reaches towards her back pocket. What is it? Let me dig it out. After quite some difficulty, she manages to retrieve her black leather wallet from her back pocket, quickly fishing out what looks like a folded square of paper. With Lily all but unaware of what's happening, Akira unfolds the scrap and hands it to me. It's an old photo of what looks like a younger Lily and Shizune operating a noodle stall with some other girl in the background. She looks vaguely familiar, but I can't quite pinpoint why. Huh. What is it, Akira? I think you know. Lily mulls this over for a few moments before a realization dawns on her. Akira, you really needn't. It's fine, isn't it? Besides, it's like the only photo I have of you two since you entered Yamaku when you were not at each other's throats. I look back down at the photo in my hand. It does seem strange to see Lily and Shizune working together so diligently without any sign of animosity. If the photo's one of them during Yamaku's festival, that means it must have been taken 1 or 2 years ago. In other words, the time they were both in the student council together. Who's the girl in the back? She seems really familiar. It's Misha before she went and dyed her hair pink. Whoa! Whoa! Misha, Misha, Misha. It feels extremely strange to see Misha without her so very distinctive hairstyle. Judging from Akira's tone, she doesn't take favorably to Misha's idea of fashion. I suppose that fact just accentuates how odd the situation looks. To think they were so friendly in the past. I wish I could do something to mend their relationship. You're being very quiet, Hisao. It just feels strange to see you all so friendly like this. Lily moves to say something but stops herself. In the end, this isn't a matter for me. It's between Shizune and Lily and nobody else, and Misha. Things change, unfortunately. I handed the photo back to Akira, who sighs as she folds it up and slides it back into her wallet. A little memory quietly hidden away to be pulled out again sometime later. That they do. Initially, I think Akira's reaction to be simply in response to the situation between Lily and Shizune, but she looks oddly glum compared to what I expected. Lily's expression has clouded as well. What's wrong? I'll be going to Scotland fairly soon. You're leaving for Scotland again? For a long moment, Akira looks surprised. It's an ill-fitting expression for her. After a glance at Lily, she turns back to me as if she's never done so. In a couple of weeks, I'll be leaving for Inverness and to work at the company's headquarters. It's a pretty big jump in corporate position, and it's not a chance that's going to come again. So Akira's going to leave Japan on what seems to be a permanent basis. I can't help feeling that my assumption that we could all happily while away our days having fun in this isolated little world is coming to an end. It's unsettling. I look at Lily, mildly surprised she hasn't told me such a thing despite usually being so forthcoming. She continues to walk with her face fixated pointedly ahead. I can't read her expression, nor can I even guess what's on her mind, which is discomforting given how it's usually easy for me to do both. It reminds me of the time we met at the Shanghai, just before what could be called our first date. At the time, all I could do was comfort her without knowing the cause, and now feels no different. As we finally reach the school dormitories once again, there's a somewhat awkward silence. I don't think I'm the only one who feels it. See you tomorrow then, Lily. Bye, Akira. Good night, Hisao. See ya. With that, they walk to the female dormitories. Opening the door to male dormitories, I stop and look back at them just moments before their figures disappear beyond that heavy wooden door. That was a strange moment when Akira said she was leaving. While that wasn't the first time when my thoughts regarding my new life have been called into question, it's perhaps the first time to do it quite so profoundly. I still don't know what to make of Akira's reaction, much less of Lily's. The night's chill reminds me to get back to my room before I catch something. My bags pulling down my arms with seemingly redoubled weight. If nothing else, I have a date with her set up for the weekend. I just need to stop overthinking stuff and get on with things as they are. The exams are still ongoing after all. With the trimester's end and the summer holidays beginning soon, there'll be plenty to keep me busy for a while. As I give a yawn and retreat inside, my thoughts turn to what Lily will decide to set as the location of our weekend's rendezvous.